Now, camera-wise, I kind of hit on it before. This thing has a dual camera setup on the back, a 48 megapixel wide-angle lens, and then a 5 megapixel depth sensor. And I think this is also another pretty big area where this phone is pretty decent. And again, it's okay. Like, you can do 4K at 60, which I'm glad to see. But unfortunately, a pretty big downside of this phone is that you don't have like that ultra-wide or telephoto lens. I am somebody, if you have one or the other, then it's like you're like 50% there. That's like a minimum kind of thing. But when you don't have either one of those, you are kind of setting yourself up for not necessarily having like the most insane amount of camera ever. No matter how good that single camera setup is, you're kind of missing out on those other type of things. And also on top of that, I said the same thing about the other devices as well. You know, like with other iPhones or any other device that comes out that doesn't necessarily have like a crazy, camera setup. You don't need, a super high megapixel count for a single camera. But even if you have the best single camera in the world, it may be, overshadowed by something else that may have an additional sensor that's more functional. In this case, the depth lens, I think is okay, but like I would rather have something like an ultra wide sensor or a telephoto lens. So keep that in mind. But as I stated before, you can do 4K at 60, and I think the single lens is okay, but even the single lens isn't even that great. But on the front, you have that 16 megapixel wide angle lens, and again here, 1080p at 30, no 4K at 60, no 1080p at 60. And this thing, it's not like this thing came out 10 years ago. This thing just came out like, 3 years ago, not even. So when you look at other phones that came out in 2019, phones like the iPhone 11 Pro, the iPhone 11, those phones had a lot of capability at that time. And unfortunately, this device doesn't really have that good of a camera in 2021, in my humble opinion. So in terms of the camera setup, that pretty much covers it up. Now,